Ladies and gentlemen, welcome out to the garage. Let's see if we can knock the dust off and do a tool review. More of an unboxing, less of a review, but kind of a first look at a tool that kind of got me excited when I saw that it existed. So I ordered it. So we're looking at a Conker 3/8 inch flex head ratchet made in Taiwan, HT05136. Apparently it's new. It's new to me, that's for sure. This ratchet, again, 3/8 inch drive. We're looking at a little bit over 8.5, not quite 8 3/4 inch. Okay, and Conker first came to my attention when I was looking at options for bit ratchets with low back drag, kind of trying to go down the rabbit hole to see what was good, what was bad. And Conker was one of the good ones. It's, I guess, arguable, up for debate whether or not it's the most useful design, due to the way it's set up with a 1/4 inch drive on one side and then just the bit adapter on the other. But it is definitely a very nice tool, low back drag tool, and this one was essentially tied with my gear wrench locking flex head 1/4 inch bit driver for lowest back drag. Okay, so this was a very good tool. A lot of folks like this tool, and I don't know, about a week ago, something popped up on my feed from Jeff's Garage Adventures. I've been super busy. Appreciate you, Jeff, but I didn't watch the whole video, so my take isn't really tainted by whatever he may have said in his. I probably will go back and watch it at some point. Like I said, I've just had a lot going on, but I saw enough of it to see that this thing existed, and so I immediately went on to Amazon and snatched one. So there's two things that stand out right off the bat when I look at this thing that make it kind of interesting. One of them was something I hoped for, and one of them was something that I could see when I clicked the button to order it. The thing that I hoped for was that the back drag on this would be light, similar to its 1/4 inch variety. And at first feel, it does not disappoint. It feels very light, and I'm gonna do some just some subjective experiments, and I'm gonna feel the others that I've got for comparison. But if you're hoping for a low back drag, again, this ratchet so far seems like it does not disappoint. It seems like it does indeed have low back drag. And the other thing that's interesting about it is just the very skinny kind of head profile. Not necessarily slender as far as depth. It's not super chunky, but it does look like you could definitely get this into some tighter spots. So if I just turn on my calipers, zero this thing out, let's just look at kind of a rough check on. Okay, so we're at like 22.9, dancing with like 23 mil as far as the head width. Maybe just under. Maybe it actually is 22.9. And then if we're looking at the actual the depth of the back of it, so we're at 14.6 from that measurement and about 25. Well, let's see. If we're going from the actual back to the so we're at 29.5 this a ways. Yeah, 22.9 this a ways. Okay, and just for comparison, I'm going to show you some of my other 3/8 inch drive ratchets. Hopefully I didn't say 3/4 inch. 3/8 inch drive ratchets. So I've got my Icon G2 locking flex head. Okay, again, substantially skinnier, but as far as the overall width of it, it looks like it's very close. So we've got 26 on the Icon. Huh, 29.4? Okay, so apparently this is a little chunkier than the Icon. Definitely a little chunkier than the gear wrench. $27.3. Okay, and 27.6. All right, so this one kind of loses. It loses the competition for skinniness this a ways, but it blows everything else out of the water this a ways. Now, what does it remind me the most of as far as profiles that I've seen? Well, the closest things that I would say, I have seen Tone has a skinny-headed 3/8 inch drive ratchet. Now, one thing that I will say is that Tone, in my experience, again, only with a 1/4 inch drive, we're not looking at the lowest back drag on the Tones. So if I had to guess, not having actually used a 3/8 inch Tone ratchet, I would guess that this one is going to have similar proportions, but superior on the back drag. I'm going to snag one of my Icon G2s because I know that some of you guys, I've seen some other channels where they basically swap the guts out on the 1/4 inch drive of these Icon G2s. They swap them out with like a 3/8 inch anvil. And so I figured, just for comparison, if somebody wanted to see how this stacks up to the 1/4 inch drive flavor, and I don't know what it would be if we had a different anvil. So let's just measure from this part. So we got 10.7 mil there, and then again, I'm kind of guessing. All right, so if you were to do that, if you were to load out like a 3/8 inch drive anvil, I think this would be a similar size as far as the width of the head. So we're looking at 22.9 there, 22.9 here. So I think if you were to do that, you would end up with, I do believe that the end result would be a ratchet that's the same width as this Conquer, but a shallower depth. So I think that you would end up with a superior tool as far as the dimensions if you were to do the Icon G2 mods, but it would just cost you a couple of ratchets to do it. Now, as far as back drag, the Icon G2 back drag feels really light. It does. I think the Conquer's a little bit lighter, but it's close. The gear wrench feels heavier. The cat, it's kind of hard to tell because it's like buttery smooth, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Conquer's lighter than this one too. This feels pretty light. This feels pretty light. This feels lighter. Okay. So I do think you're looking at like a contender for a back drag champion. I'd have to look at seeing if I could set something up to do the old back drag wars to see if it's actually lighter. But Geez, one of the things I just realized is I'm looking around for, oh, here we go. Here we go. I'm looking around for my Icon G2 locking flex head, and it looks like the Conquer. Again, if you were to switch out the anvil on one of these, I think you'd have, like, again, a superior profile as far as like thinness. Very, very similar as far as the thickness, I think, if not identical. And then very similar in the overall length of the tool. No locking flex head on the Conquer. At the end of the day, if you were to do that, though, it would potentially cost you, well, 2 ratchets, I guess, to build something that's, you know, pretty close to this, but would have locking flex head capability. I don't know. I guess, you know, I hadn't considered actually doing that swap. I hadn't found a use case or a need to do it. And I was really honestly just curious about the Conquer. I wanted to get it in my hands, see how I liked it. This doesn't feel too floppy. Feels like it's the right amount of floppiness that you would want. I imagine you could tighten it up a little bit if you wanted to. There are no detents or anything like that. It's literally just friction, depending on how tight this is right here. I do like on the Conquers that they have the little quick release. There's quite a few times where, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's up to you guys if you like that feature. If you don't, I know some people say the anvils are weaker on the ones that have the button. While this feels like a pretty stout tool, I think you want to use something like this with a smaller head wisely. I don't think you want to be cranking too hard on things like this, just like you wouldn't want to be cranking too hard if you did a conversion from the 1/4 inch Icon G2 or something like that with the 3/8 inch anvil. You just, I just don't think I would recommend that. But this feels like a good tool for only $30. I think the value for money is there. The low back drag, again, very nice. Where does something like this really come in handy? Well, I think if you have a Subaru, if you've got one of those Boxer engines and you need to get a ratchet into somewhere tight, you know, where your spark plug well is like right up against the frame, and like a Legacy, a WRX, something like that, I think this kind of ratchet kind of shines in that kind of those kind of conditions. However, the kind of most important metric in those conditions might actually be the thinness, and you might be better served by some of these other ratchets in that case. So if my kiddo hadn't wrecked the Subaru, maybe I'd stick the ratchet in there and find out. But I don't have a Subaru anymore, so I can't do that. But I think if you're looking between like the Tone, which again is the other one that I know makes something kind of similar to this profile, I think this Conquer is like a compelling option. I do think maybe it's somewhat compelling if this kind of tool is really your jam to build your 3/8 inch anvil locking flex head version. That might be kind of compelling too, I guess. But seems like they put out a good tool. Nice, easy selector switch, and does not disappoint on the back drag. I myself like predominantly metal handles. I'm not sure if this right here, I'm not sure what's going on with this. I could do without that myself, but maybe it gives you like a tiny bit, maybe it gives you a tiny bit more grip. If it got oily, I don't know, maybe. But seems like a good tool for the money. I think it's worth giving it a whirl. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.